Well, I'm gonna be talking about more creepy comics. This is what, the third video? It would be nice if comics would give me a break. But DC released a comic called Harley Quinn Fartacular, Silent but Deadly, with 2 T's on the butt. The second time DC has pulled that joke. We get it, you guys like butts. Thanks for that. But yeah, this comic basically reads like a fart fetish comic. And it made me think of other creepy Harley Quinn and Batman stories. So here we are. Content warning, this is going to get dark. Harley Quinn originally premiered in the 1990s Batman the Animated Series and was created by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. She quickly became a fan favorite, much to the surprise of her creators, since she was originally intended to be a one-off character, which caused her to become a recurring character, and they also wanted to bring her over to the comics. However, DC's editorial at the time was really not interested in the character. They didn't think she fit in with their stories, and they didn't really care for the idea of the Joker having a girlfriend at all. This meant that she wasn't introduced in the comics proper until years later, and oftentimes she's not really taken seriously as a character, basically reduced to fetish material like this. That's not to say that all of her comics are bad, but this kind of stuff happens way too often. She was actually a pretty nuanced and interesting character in the animated series, but in the comics, it's not uncommon for her to be reduced to a joke. And I know she's a clown, but still, this is crossing the line. One particularly egregious comic involves her stalking Billy Batson, who is 13 years old. It comes from Injustice: Gods Among Us, where Harley is pursuing Shazam, despite being fully aware of the fact that Shazam is actually a 13-year-old boy who can transform into the body of an adult, but still has the mind of a child, and she basically grooms him? She stalks him at his school and tells the office that she's his mother. I'm not sure why no one in this comic recognizes Harley Quinn, but they call him down and just tell him that his mom is there to see him, and then they just leave him alone with this strange, creepy woman, who proceeds to demand that he transform into Shazam, and when he refuses, she kidnaps him, knocking him out with a mallet, and when he wakes up, he is bound and gagged to a chair, where she then says that she wants to go on a date, but not with him because that would be creepy, with Shazam instead. Basically, they're trying to pretend this isn't completely inappropriate because she's totally not into Billy, aka the 13-year-old. She's totally into Shazam, who is an adult, so it's totally fine. Except it's not. It's not. He still has the brain of a child.
Maybe it's time we all talked about the elephant in the room. Should Captain Marvel stay a member, now that we know he's really only 10 years old?
He does possess an adult body and the wisdom of Solomon.
Wisdom does not equal maturity.
And when he refuses again, she knocks him out again, and then just leaves him there. And she continues to stalk and harass him, pointing a gun at his friends, insisting he transforms or she'll shoot. And when he does transform, she's constantly forcing herself on him, with absolutely no concern for A, boundaries, and B, he is a child. What makes all this worse is that even though he continues to refuse her, he does warm up to her. In other words, she's grooming him. And no one in the comics holds her accountable for this. In fact, she doesn't really get held accountable for anything she did in Injustice. And she did a lot. She was involved in Joker killing Lois Lane, which is what caused Superman to descend into madness to begin with. But then she joins Batman against Superman, and everyone's just cool with her. Except Martha Kent, who's mad at her since, she helped kill her daughter-in-law, along with millions of people dying in Metropolis. In other words, she's the only character who has any sense. Otherwise, she faces no consequences for her actions, whether it involved murder or grooming a child. I know villains are supposed to do evil things, but the point of superhero media is to stop the bad guys and to hold them accountable for their actions. But not in Harley's case, apparently. At least in the Fart comic, she doesn't go after children. That has to count for something. Although the bar is in Tartarus, literally there's a part where they go to Tartarus, where ironically she complains about farts. But in this comic, she just straight up has a fetish. Anyway, toilet humor is usually considered pretty juvenile, something that you might see in a children's cartoon, but this comic is clearly not aimed for children. But I also can't think of who this was made for. Who was asking for this? Honestly, I feel like comics have a huge problem when it comes to customer relations, which is something that's been going on for decades, both with DC and Marvel. They basically just do whatever they want regardless of what fans think. And I understand that these are their characters, but at the same time, they are expecting people to actually buy these comics. So we have Marvel refusing to make one of their most popular ships be canon in their main universe, and we have DC putting out weird fetish material. There was one comic where they used the Joker to basically play into the Mpreg fetish. Zatanna casts a spell that goes horribly wrong, and then Joker ends up basically vomiting up a little version of himself for some reason. Seriously, was anyone asking for this stuff? Do you guys remember DC Black Label? It was supposed to be their attempt at more mature storytelling, utilizing darker themes. But let's be honest, DC is not shy about dark themes. Sue Dibney being violently essayed and murdered, Black Canary being kidnapped and tortured. There are multiple Catwoman comics with dark themes, like one story where her sister and brother-in-law are kidnapped and tortured in very graphic detail, or another where Selina is a prostitute and we're introduced to her being beaten in a back alley. I mean, I already made a whole video talking about messed up stories by DC, so what could they possibly release that we haven't already seen? And it's naked Batman, just straight full frontal nudity, in a book called Batman Damned. How edgy. But this issue was a huge controversy for DC. Even mainstream comedians like Stephen Colbert and Seth Meyers talked about it.
Guess what, folks? A new Batman comic shows the Cape Crusader's penis for the first time. So the new dynamic duo is Batman and Throbbin.
The backlash caused them to censor the issue for future releases, both online and in reprints, although the original printing sold out. Anyway, apparently the controversy was so massive that it caused DC to rethink who they are as a company. Apparently DC's parent company, Time Warner, was also not happy about this, and restructured the company, causing a bunch of layoffs, and perhaps unsurprisingly the Black Label comics got hit the hardest. And not to defend Batman Damned, but I can't help but wonder why this is what broke DC. I understand that people are going to have a certain reaction to nudity, it's just that things like essay, torture, and murder are not really uncommon in comics. But here, Batman is just existing. Naked, but existing. Meanwhile, in the main story, he was forced to father a child against his will. There's also a comic where Ra's al Ghul's sister wants to do the same thing to Tim Drake. He's chained to a wall and she's about to force herself onto him. And then Tim goes, "Isn't this how we got Damien?" Which is wild. Luckily, Cass rescues him, but still. These are things that happened in mainstream comics. While I don't think the Bat Wang was a good idea, I can't help but feel like we've seen worse. I just don't know what DC thought they had with this Harley Quinn Fartacular book. It says that it's supposed to be an April Fool's joke, but is anyone actually laughing with the comic? Because it seems like everybody collectively rallied against it. It's always nice when the internet can come together and agree on something. Just wish it could be generally more positive. Overall, it looks like this is another comic to add to the "what were they thinking" pile. I'm not saying that comics can't include darker themes, but one, they need to be handled with proper respect. Otherwise, they can end up promoting and romanticizing some very disturbing content. And secondly, they need to be aware of what fans want. Sometimes I feel like they think they can coast by on shock value, but I'm not sure how that's working out for them. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Equestron, Norman Sweet Cream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Bam, Lucas Geist, J Draws, Meowsers, Sky, Philip, Isaac Martinez, Garcia XV Legend, Tobias Weller, Bandito Bane, Mac B909, Dakari the Professor, Todd McCaffrey, Omni Fair, General Bolivar, Cavalcoj, Strider Exile, Phil C, Killer Bomb, Slawa Saporiguez, Entwined Boot 301, Griffin of Might, Frankie Camarillo, Datadyne Executive, Crimson Phantom, Jin the Goblin, and Papa Hud 69. Thank you for the support. And if you want to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And that part's free. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.